Hey everybody, I am Craig Hardesty with Out on Film, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you here with us for another installment of Out on Film's In Conversations With. And we have with us right now the cast and creator of Sordid Lives, with whom we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Sordid Lives. So welcome all of you to Out on Film, and thank you so much for coming. We have Del Shores, we have Emerson Collins, and Walker, and Noel, and Rosemary Alexander, who have joined us tonight for this conversation. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So, Del, I want to go ahead and start with you. 20th anniversary. What is that like?
Well,
What does that feel like right now?
before I say anything, I just want to ask one question. Do you see my pussy now? Um,
Lord, I hope not.
if you do, you're too close and not social distancing. Uh, it's quite remarkable actually, and we are we had a lot of, as you know, we had a lot of celebrations planned, and I'm glad we're getting to do this tonight because COVID kind of halted it all, but we still are so grateful for the legacy of Sordid Lives. None of us anticipated it. None of us. We just thought we were doing a real fun little movie that would, play a few festivals, and we'd go on our merry way. So here we are 20 years later, and
Well,
we love you. So
so, and you were here at Out on Film 20
we
years
were.
ago.
Yes, we were.
And we're all back, which is really great. And we've been really excited to be able to do this. Obviously, we were really hoping to have everybody in person, but to be able to still be able to celebrate the relationship between the film and kind of the franchise that we'll talk about, and the movie. And so I'm interested from all of you. Um, what does it kind of feel like for all of you that this has been so wildly successful and popular, and that we're all still watching it and kind of applauding and quoting lines? So, Anne, I'll start with you. Kind of, what is it like?
Well, it's the most wonderful feeling when people email me or they put up on Facebook or they private message me. We watched Sorted Lives last night. There was one guy that had never seen it. And so now it's like people are just still loving it and still watching it. And they use it to show, to tell some of their families that maybe, gently that they happen to be coming out. People have used it for that. And I just couldn't, I looked exactly the same as I did 20 years ago, too.
Mm.
I'm really happy about that. So do you, Rosemary.
Well, Craig, I don't know if you know this, but most of the people that were in the film were also in the play. And these three created the roles that the three. Emerson, of course, wasn't in the original production. He was a baby when we started.
A toddler.
But we all started on a tiny little stage, 64 seats, called Theater. It was in May of 1996. So that's where this whole journey
Oh,
started.
And it was like we'll do our own show. We did everything ourselves.
well, you built the set.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we repainted the walls black like they were before over the dirt, and there was a lot of
Yeah,
electrical
remember,
smells.
remember we
It
couldn't move
was 1926.
for the
You
first
know,
couple of
wow.
weeks.
We put it
I can
together.
he's still talking to you.
Wait, y'all are talking over each
For
other.
each other.
And you said we couldn't what?
We couldn't move backstage after we opened because there was just the stage was so small. We had to stand against the walls before we make our entrances, and you couldn't speak. And then our producer,
That would have
Sharon
been
Payne,
me.
not you,
That would have been me.
but we got this little theater that they had back behind the stage in another spot, So finally, after a couple of weeks, we got to go into that place when we weren't on stage, which was
Yeah, we
nice.
rented theater was two theaters and one was very tiny. And so we were such a success that the cast was bitching so much that I rented the other space so that they could have that
Yeah.
as a big dressing room.
Yeah. So it was one big giant dressing room for everybody. So it was very interesting. You know, no one had any secrets. Uh, but we all pulled together as a cast. It was amazing.
And there were 3 people who brought children into the dressing room.
Oh.
Beth Grant sometimes had Mary with her.
Our
And,
granddaughter.
and our granddaughter came in, and the guy who played
Odell.
Odell, he brought his son in, and we would all like talk to the kids, help them do their homework between our scenes.
It's amazing.
It was just a great time. I mean, we bonded so much and so quickly that it really was just such a wonderful time for us, all of us.
And so, Del, when you went from that stage play, what made you think I'm going to make a movie?
Well, honestly, we have to give Beau Bridges some credit here because Beau Bridges brought his entire family to the play, including Lloyd and his mother and Jeff Bridges. And I was not there that night because I was producing a show at the time, a TV show at the time, and we were doing a night shoot. And I remember he woke me up the next morning on a Saturday. He came on a Friday, and he said, "Del, this is a movie." And he said, "I think this will open up even better than Daddy's Dying, Who's Got the Will," because he was also in that. And he said, "And if you do this movie, I want to wear that black bra." And so Beau Bridges was the very first person who signed a letter of intent. And we had to have a few of those. You know, it was Beau, and then Olivia Newton-John signed one. And then how crazy, because I've been hiking with her lately, is Beverly D'Angelo was supposed to play LaVonda, and Anne was supposed to play Juanita. And so aren't we glad all that got rearranged?
I practiced moving that cigarette from one side of my mouth to the other. And then like a week, 2 weeks before or so, when we were starting to shoot, Delford calls me up and he said, "Well, how would you like to play LaVonda?" Well, I was so happy I didn't have to move that cigarette inside of my mouth, one side or the other.
Yeah, Beverly got pregnant with twins at age 48, so that's the reason that.
I wasn't on that shoot.
So what was it like for each of, so Noel, Rosemary, and Anne, as you created such iconic characters, did you have any idea that it would turn into this? Or kind of what was these early experiences really like as you were creating and embodying these characters that Del created?
Well, I have to say, the first time we read the whole script in Del's living room, Beth Grant was there, and Noel, the original play cast, Patricia Darbo, and we all kind of, laughed our way through it, falling off our chairs. And afterward, we all kind of looked at each other and said, "Is this as funny as we think it is?"
True.
And when the play opened, the first night, the laughter just rolled and rolled and rolled and continued for 14 months. So we knew it was funny. When we did the movie, we weren't sure how that would go, but we hoped that it would really take off. And it took it a long time to take off because there was no advertising budget.
It was all word of mouth, all word of mouth.
All over the mouth. We'd given up. I had given up on the movie. I've been in done a lot of roles in small movies and things, and you do something and you forget it. And this one, we kept hearing rumbles from the desert, we kept hearing, you know, I mean, somebody would say, "Did you know your show's still running in Palm Springs?" I don't think we're going, "Oh yeah, we're a great show." You know, I mean, we were also disappointed that it didn't do well commercially. And boy, our first trip out to Palm Springs opened our eyes for sure. You know,
Yeah.
it ran, what was it? The biggest, longest run in Palm Springs.
It ran, Craig, it ran for 96 weeks at the Camelot Theaters in Palm Springs. And that, because Palm Springs is such a mecca for people coming in. I mean, you're people from Atlanta. So finally, when the DVD was released 3 years later, everybody was waiting for it, and they were like sharing it, and it was crazy. But I want to say one thing about this play, because it was my coming out play. I was married to Newell and Rosemary's daughter, Kelly, and they're the grandparents of my two daughters, who are 30 and 27 now, and they were little bitty things. When we did the play, I literally had to let them see some of it and not see their grandmother spread her legs and say, "Fuck me, Earl, fuck me now." So that's how messed up our family is. And but it was such a gift to myself. I always say this play and this movie was a gift to myself, because I was so had so much internal hatred growing up in the Baptist church in Texas with my dad, a Southern Baptist preacher. And when I heard that those audiences laugh and applaud and cheer and stand up at the end of the play, it was so affirming to me. And what was really wonderful is then, as the movie progressed and got more successful, and to this day, people write us all and say, "I came out to my mother, I came out to my grandmother by showing her Sordid Lives." And I think because everybody relates to this family. And I think it's a little fucked up, to show Sordid Lives and say, "Hey, I'm gay." But I love it.
But it kind of is. It serves as that kind of like the perfect coming out movie, especially young Southern
Well,
people.
because there's humor. These parents, if you get them laughing, and it doesn't seem quite so, scary, I think, to them.
And I think that you can't watch Sordid Lives and not start to feel empathy and
That's right.
sympathy
Yeah.
Absolutely.
for Brother Boy and Ty, because both of them are such wonderful, sensitive, caring people. And I think because it put a face and a name, that it became not just a gay character, but people don't say, "Oh, there's this gay character." They say, "It's Brother Boy."
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It does, and I'm curious, Emerson, as you came into this universe, how did this speak to you?
Well, and that's, I have probably the best fan story ever, right? Because long before I co-produced the series with Dell and of course produced the sequel with everyone, I first encountered Sordid Lives as a not out student at Baylor University, the world's largest Baptist institution, 3 or 4 years right after Dell graduated from the same university. But I did, but like so many others, I first encountered it as a Southern gay boy, fan. And there was such a joy in seeing a world of people that looked like the world of my extended family, not my immediate family, I'll be honest, but like my extended family, the Shreveport side.
You're saying you're better than us, Emerson? Is that what you're saying? Okay, I got you.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that not clear? No, yes.
No, it's been clear for years, Emerson.
But like so many people, like the worlds that we grew up in, like having the crazy aunts and the cousins and the people that you love, but you're a little afraid. Like, does this person who says they loves me and pinches my cheeks and sends me $5 and says not to spend it all in one place, what are they going to say when I tell them this secret? So I related to it on such a visceral level long before I had the opportunity to meet everyone. And so one of the great joys of my life has then been being able to be a part of their family and telling that story further. But yeah, I started it just like everybody else who watched it at a festival like yours, or in a theater where someone dragged and said, "You have to see this ridiculous movie that I relate to," just like everyone else.
So I'm curious, Dale. I mean, I know it plays very well in the South. We all love it. I mean, people flock to it. People will see it 1,000 times. How does it How does it play outside of the South?
You know, it depends on the person, I think. I mean, there are so many that just relate to the family aspect of it. And I remember, I remember this when Anne, you were actually there. I think we went to Miami. It was you. I think you were there. It was the Miami Film Festival. It was me and you and Kirk, or and Delta maybe. I can't remember. And it was a very different audience than we were used to, because we had played Memphis and maybe Nashville at that point, and then we went down to Miami. And so it was more of like an older Jewish crowd who was supporting this film festival that wasn't a gay film festival. And I remember this woman came up to me at the end after the Q&A, and she said, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she took my hand, and she looked kind of like Mike Myers' character on Saturday Night Live, Linda Richmond. And she said, "Listen, I want you to know something. This translates to my family as well. We just have more money."
Well, and I have always said, we've now traveled the whole country in so many places. And what I have always loved about Dell's work, and this specifically, is that the more specific you make something, the more universal it becomes, right? It's My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Like, we don't all have, Greek families, but you watch a family, you see an overbearing mother, you see an aunt who's hiding from her sister. It's the relationships. Yes, they're in a specific world. And what we all do find is the laughs are different in different places, but they are just as strong for the relatability of the world that they all built so beautifully 24 years ago.
Here's the difference, Craig. The difference is, with a northern audience, I have to explain why Bonnie Bedelia picks that pie up and looks under it. In the South, everybody gets it.
You know, as this started, and as Noah was saying, it started to take off. It's like the little independent film that could. And it kind of, like you said, it kind of started to spread. People started to see it. It took some time. But you also kind of built on this story with other stories. You did Southern Baptist Sissies. You all did a series from this. You know, and you did the sequel. So how did all of this really build for all of you? I mean, you've been involved in so many of these projects together. Kind of how has this evolution been for all of you?
Well, I'll just say right now, and then I'll just let them talk. They're just my sordid family. I mean, I love good actors and I love good people. And I have worked with this group right here many, many, many times, and I will continue to work with them until one of us is
One
gone.
of us dies.
You know,
Yeah.
or they say, "No more, no more, Dale. I can't. But it's just a beautiful family. We've just really developed a great family together, and that it's not. I mean, we don't just get together with each other when we work. We are. I've seen all of these people in the last 2 weeks, even during COVID.
I watched the Emmy Awards with Dell. No makeup on, my hair pulled back. I even took my hat off. It was that was
Frightening. It was frightening.
Yes, it was. But not many people see me like that.
I mean, the thing is, 28 years. I mean, I was in my 50s when we opened the play. I think I was almost 60 when we shot the movie. I was 68 or 9 when we did the series, and 75 when we shot A Very Sordid Wedding. And, it's like, can I get away with another one? Dr. Eve could be any age, but you start to feel a responsibility to your family and to the fans.
Right.
to give them what they're expecting to see. So 2 facelifts later,
And Rosemary, and an improvement in lighting. We have gotten better at lighting.
Yes, 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 yes.
yeah, when we shot the movie, you know, we're a family. Leslie's been a friend for years and years, and we really never had a crossword working. But the first day of shooting the movie, I heard Dell tell the gaffer, I want you to make sure all times that he is glamorously beautiful. And I'm a photographer. I understand lighting. I'm sitting there with a window behind me, which is backlit.
And that blue wall.
That blue wall. Oh my God. But you know what? Nobody cared. It just, the characters are so touching in their own good, or in my case, bad way.
But I will say the original movie inspired a few plastic surgeries.
We did that series as a
Well, we had
prequel,
one.
but it was believable.
Yes.
Had one, but it was full. It was a full thing.
Well, I think one of the things that has always struck me, and Del, and you and Emerson and Ann, you've been with us at Out on Film in Atlanta before, and something that Rosemary was just saying about how, you know, it touches people, and you know, you guys were here with us for Southern Baptist Sissies, and we kept selling out auditoriums, and I kept running you two all over the theater all night long, because people just kept on coming. And when you all came back for Very Sordid Wedding, I mean, we sold out 4 of them, like in 2 days and back to back. And so what is it like for you all to know that you touch people in such profound ways? And that, you know, one of the comments that we have on the chat, and it's from Jim Brum. So, you know, Del, that he drove Michael Lemons all the way, you know, to Nashville to see Sordid Lives. I mean, people travel to come and see the films and see all of you do this. And as you think about, as you've done this through the years, what is it like as you think about all the people that you've really, really touched
Well,
in profound ways?
it's humbling, quite honestly, because as we touch them, they're also touching us. I mean, they are literally creating our careers, and we always have to say thank you for that. I mean, we have been
When
very,
I,
very grateful that I remember, like, during an ice storm, we played the 14th Street Playhouse, and we did, you know, really well. We've done these live shows, and people just keep coming, and we're very, very grateful that we have been allowed to not take a day job, that we have been able to do what we love. That's so it goes both ways. So big thank you to all of you who are watching.
yeah,
Atlanta, y'all have been so good to us. I mean, truly.
I have something to say.
You
Go
what?
ahead.
I said, I have something to say.
Please do.
When I did Southern Baptist Sissies, I played Annette
Oh,
Odette Barnett, and we played, as soon as we finished in LA, we went over to Dallas to play it. It sold out within moments, and then people would line up. This is what really got me. These people would line up so that they could speak to us and tell us their stories about how they came out, what it was like, and what they had to go through in order to be okay about it, about being gay. And there would be lines of guys and girls telling us these stories, and that can't help but, you know, touch you in a way that nothing else can, that you were able to bring this character to life and people identified with it. And, you know, it is humbling, very humbling. Of course, I'm not humble anymore, but anyway.
Might have been a little while since. Well, and I also want to, the big success of Sordid Lives existed all before me, but that film festivals like yours, places like this are where people first found that movie and fell in love. Before it landed in the movie theaters where it ran so long. And everything that I've done with this incredible family is possible because of that first group of fans who exist because of what you and Jim and the Out on Film volunteers and your festivals do by providing queer artists a platform for people to find them for the first time. So Southern Baptist Sissies, we crowdfunded that film, and the people who paid for that, yes, some Sissies fans who saw the play various places, but primarily the Sordid fan base. The series happened because people loved the original film. The sequel, it all goes back to the film festivals that made that first film find people. So it is our joy and our pleasure that Dell's name, these actors, their reputations, if we can sell out screenings that give you the opportunity to give platforms to new queer artists for people to come and find them, that's the paying it forward for the hand that you all offered them 20 years ago with this film. It is our great pleasure, and that is why we always show up. We always say yes. We will always be there because you all made it possible.
It makes me very proud when people say to me, "Aren't you Wardell?" As an actor living in Hollywood, nobody gives a shit who you are at all. But going out to festivals and going to places that we're recognized, it's wonderful. Going to a coffee shop in Palm Springs and have somebody go, "Hey, that's Noel Anderson,"
Well, at least they got half of it right, Noel.
And have another guy say that's Wardell, instead. I have to say that for an actor to make a difference in somebody's life, I cannot think of a bigger honor. Years ago, when I stopped looking 27 and young and sassy and started having to think about what my career meant and why I wanted to keep on working when I no longer just booked every commercial that I went out on. And I made a mission statement for myself that I want to heal through entertainment. And that's when I started working with Dell and started doing Sordid Lives and then Southern Baptist Sissies. And all of the people at the end of the show, we used to come out from Sissies and people would just fall into our arms and say, "That's my life. I tried to commit suicide 3 times," or "That's my brother's life. He committed suicide."
Well, and we had an agent that we said, "Would you please come see our show?" And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I don't go to shows." He said, because he said, he said, "Everybody expects me to be laughing and that whole thing." He said, "I don't go to shows. I just don't." So finally we talked him into going. He said, "Okay, and I'll come and I'll bring my boyfriend," and all that. So they came to the show and he was sitting down. And during the show, he's there and he's like, so I finally, I said, we're going to do some, this next show and everything. He said, "I don't know." He said, "Yes, I go to your shows." A rough, tough guy. Jeff Davis.
Yeah. So, Dell and Emerson, I just, for a minute, just to kind of dovetail on some of this, what do you say? What kind of advice, or what do you say to young, just starting out queer filmmakers want to tell a story? It is hard, it's been 20 years and it's just as hard now as it probably was then to get movies made, independent film and everything. But what do you say to them, the young voices who have stories to tell?
You want to go, Emerson?
Yeah, you.
I say tell them. And the great thing about today, as opposed to when I started, is there's so many more platforms for you to tell the stories and to shoot them in a way that's more economical. we were like going to Sony. We were the first high def movie ever, I think. And now it's you can actually, you can shoot a movie on your iPhone if you just one piece of advice: make sure the sound is good. Just make sure the sound is good, because but find a way to tell your story. I mean, I started telling my stories in tiny little theaters, and then it expanded out. But somebody saw it, and somebody responded, and by that you're inspired to go to the next level. And Emerson,
Yeah, and I would say, the great or terrible thing to remember is it's hard at every level. It does not get easier. The world of making art, I mean, even beyond, film and, the art is hard. Art will always be hard. If it's not hard, what are you doing? And so as he said, tell the story you have to tell, as the actor side of my brain says, and the producer side says, and also be realistic. If the first story you have to tell is an epic alien war story, maybe set that aside and tell a smaller one first.
yes.
Till you can get that $300 million. Don't do it with, puppets in your backyard. But honestly, yes, it will always be hard, but there are even more opportunities to tell the story now, and tell it however you can to get it out there. And the doors appear as they appear, and set yourself up to say yes when the next door arrives, knowing it will be just as hard at that next level. And I don't say that to be discouraging. I say it to be encouraging. It is always hard to do what we do. It is hard to hold on to your voice and make sure the story you're telling is good. The rest of it, you can work out. Have a good story, tell a good story, however you can.
And hit up all your rich friends and your rich relatives who will not miss their money to invest in your film and your TV and all.
And if you have some, introduce us.
And I have to say, asking your friends for money. When I first met Del, he was teaching a writing workshop, and I was in his workshop, and we wrote scenes every week. And at the end of like 12 weeks, Del said, "Rosemary, you have a play." And he had just written a play. And so we decided that we would together raise money to put the plays up. So I borrowed money from my friends. One of my girlfriends had a rich boyfriend, and he loaned us, he gave us the investment money, and I paid him back with interest in 10 weeks. He was thrilled. I had an investor forever.
That's great. I didn't know that story.
Well, yeah, because remember, Anne, when we first opened Sordid Lives, we were in repertory with Rosemary's play Bachelorette Party. They played like Thursdays and Sundays, and we played Fridays and Saturdays. And then we kept going. And
where was I? I don't know. Don't answer that.
And I would say, it can be hard telling our kinds of stories, right? Because everyone everywhere immediately says this is a niche story, whether it is or isn't. And certainly the industry is embracing more broad appeal versions of our stories. And being aware that can do a lot of gatekeeping, it can make it harder for young people, for Black people, for people of color, for trans stories. And at every point you sort of have to hustle, but it is like if you can only start with the iPhone in your hand and a YouTube channel, that is still a place to start telling your stories. And festivals like yours and competitions are also creating grants and feeding opportunities to support the most marginalized of our community. It just takes hustle and research and a lack of shame. You have to believe in the story you want to tell so much that you can shamelessly beg, plead, and borrow. Don't steal, but beg, plead, and borrow from anyone.
Don't prostitute yourself.
I know. I have threatened multiple times at the end of raising the money for a very sordid wedding that I'd be offering $5 handies, and the arthritis was worth it.
I sold a full-length fox fur coat to Rosemary Alexander. I was producing a play that I really wanted to star in, and I was wandering around the house. What can I sell? I love that coat. and it looked so great on her. And bless her heart, she gave me 500 bucks for it. And, you know, and you do that. You just do it. If it means that much to you, in that particular play, I wanted to play that character, um, and uh, what's your name? Oh, Dell. Uh, Dell and Kelly gave me money. They really, loved the play, loved the playwright, and we pulled that thing off, And,
That's But here's Craig, and this is a piece of advice: be inspired by those other filmmakers. Be inspired by the East Siders who, they raised 25 grand that shot their first 2 seasons, and then Netflix picked it up. But you have to have good product. You
yeah,
really have to have good product as well. So make sure your script is good. Make sure that your actors are good. Make sure that you have surround yourself with the very, very best, and you will look better.
And what Dell said before, and Craig, y'all know, the only thing that matters is sound. You can forgive everything else in a low budget, lo-fi, like lighting, costume, whatever. If you're telling a good story with good actors, the only thing that matters is good sound, because we'll forgive all the rest for a compelling narrative.
It's the truth. The only person who was union on Sordid Lives, the first movie, was the sound guy. I knew I have to have good sound. Everything else can look bad.
I always say at every festival on opening night, as soon as the movie starts and the sound is fine, I take a breath and I go next door and have dinner as soon as I know the sound is fine.
Same. Every time.
So, but before we close, I just want to talk, just to get reflections from each of you as you think about this, and really what you feel the legacy of this film is, because it has a life of its own now. The sequel has a following. There is a strong following, and it maintains. So as you kind of reflect on kind of this journey over 20 years of this film, what do you see as the legacy of it? And Rosemary, I know I'll start with the two of you.
Well, the legacy of it for me is the fact that it told truth. It told truth about a family. It told truth about being gay from his, in the history. It told truth about the young guy who is gay now, and it still tells that same truth. I think that's why it's endured for so long. And it's funny. People see it to laugh. People show it to their family member who has cancer and is suffering, and it helps them to laugh and have a few moments of joy.
And it's authentic. That's one of the things that people really like about it. Dell's writing is super authentic. You can spot fake Texas writers, and people who aren't in what they're doing. But Dell saturates himself with that stuff because that's who part of who he is.
And Anne?
I grew up in Texas, and I didn't know very many gay people growing up where I grew up. And the world opened up to me as I grew, as I got older, as I moved to California. And meeting Dell and being able to create this character of Lavonda, I don't want to cry, but it's meant so much to me that it's going to continue. It isn't going to stop just because I happen to die at some point. It's going to continue on, and that's what I also love about movie making, is that we do leave a legacy. He's leaving a legacy for people that will never go away. And there will be people at some point who will be showing it long after we're dead, gone, and nobody will know who we are. but my character will be remembered. And he wrote it, and I just couldn't be happier that we have that legacy to leave. So
And
that's
And I, coming to it late, I think what is so brilliant in the legacy is they built a world. It's not a movie, it's a world. People love these actors because they love these characters, and they return time and time again to hang out with them. Like, that's a lasting impact. When you can create characters that people just want to continue to spend time with, and beyond the funny, because we've talked about how much you can get away with saying while people are laughing that you can't always say while you're being serious. The impact of the legacy, that even beyond the gay and the coming out piece of learning to love your family for who they are instead of who you want them to be, I think that's the thing that everyone walks away with, whether they relate specifically to Ty and Brother Boy's portion. Like, that's everyone's journey in this piece. And I think that is a lesson that can never be learned or heard too often.
And I think the great gift of it and a legacy is how many productions have been done that other actors got to play these roles. These are yummy roles for actors.
Oh boy.
They're rich, they're challenging, and they're so rewarding because audiences love them. So, I mean, probably into the thousands, there have been so many theater productions of Sordid Lives and A Very Sordid Wedding, and soon, of Southern Baptist Sissies, soon there'll be productions on stage of A Very Sordid Wedding. And it's a great gift to actors and to community theaters and local theaters.
can make a bunch of money. Whatever theater whatever theater you have it in, it wipes out box office. I mean, box office is all the way up to 100%. And you can run it a long time. Oh,
They had a great production with an all-black family in Atlanta.
They did at Outfront Theater. They did.
that's cool. But
So-
one thing, never mind. I don't know. It went out of my head.
So Del, I'll give you the last word. I want you to talk about what this legacy means to you. This is a very personal story and a very personal journey for you. So,
Recently somebody asked me if I resented being known as the Sordid Lives guy, and I said no. You can put it on my tombstone. That's okay with me. I've written a lot of other stuff, but if people remember me for this one, I feel like I made them laugh. I made them think a little bit, and maybe shed a tear or two. And that's always been my hope with all of my work, that yes, first and foremost, always laugh. I want you to laugh. And boy, right now in this world that we're living in, we need some laughs, right? But if I make you think a little bit, good. If I make you cry a little bit, then even better. So I think gratitude comes to my mind when I think of the legacy of Sordid Lives. I'm just grateful that somehow I decided one day to tell this bizarre story, and every director in Los Angeles turned it down, and it created an opportunity for myself to start directing my own material, and here we go, and here we are.
and I think that's really wonderful. And I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight to be able to celebrate this 20th anniversary of Sordid Lives and the legacy, and really from us at Out on Film, the relationship that we've had with you and this film and the rest of your work. I have broken fire codes, stuffing people into theaters because they wanted to see
So
telling theater managers just stay upstairs. And it's been a really, really wonderful experience for us too. And so I want to thank all of you for participating and always saying yes. As you said, Emerson, you always say yes to everything and have been so gracious to our audiences. And I think it's just been really, really a wonderful experience. And I think for the film festival circuit, these are the reasons that we do this. is to champion films like this and to touch people the way that you all have touched people.
Well,
Um,
thank you for all the support you've given us for so many years. We so appreciate you and Jim and all of the people of Atlanta. We love you guys.
My producer brain wants to say, because I know you guys don't say it often enough or ask it often enough, that to all of your audience that's watching, it's amazing that you figured out how to make this possible this year. But there's no way this can, contribute to the operating income you use every year to make the festival possible. So if you're at home watching this and enjoying this, and you've contributed to every candidate you can think of, an issue you can think of, and you still have some dollars left over, Out on Film is a great place to give it, because they will not say it enough how hard it has been this year to figure this out, to make this kind of thing work, and to bring you the programming they normally would share with you in person. So support them in any and every way that you can.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying
Yes, yes, and you'll get a tax deduction, and maybe you will only have to pay $750 of taxes this year.
and get your hair done. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for this conversation tonight, and for all of you who've watched the film and the film has touched you and you've joined us for this conversation. Thank you very much. And thank all of you for joining us for this conversation this evening. It was really, really a pleasure for me to have all of you.
Thank you.
So thank you all, and have a great night.
Bye, all.
Bye.